Welcome everybody to another episode of Geek Dad Reviews. I'm Brian.
And I'm Ryan.
And tonight we're going to be reviewing the new animated film from DC Animation, Justice League versus the Fatal Five. Five.
Three.
Not one or even three, but five.
Three, but five.
Which, spoiler alert, means they're gonna fight five bad guys, and the five bad guys are fatal.
They're fatally bad.
They're Fatal Five. Actually, I think Fatal Five was a pretty accurate description for these guys and gals because they sure like to do a lot of murder.
Yes, but do you know what was not fatal, Brian? This movie.
This movie was not fatal. This movie was
opposite fatal. It was alive and vibrant.
Yeah, this movie was great. But before we get into all that, just small spoiler: if you've not seen this movie, we're going to be talking about it. Obviously, we're going to try and not give away too many of the giant plot points and some of the surprises that were in this. But there's one in particular that we probably will talk about, but we'll try and save it for the end so you can kind of skip it. And we'll give you a warning if you don't want to know if you haven't seen this movie. But we are going to be talking about Justice League versus the Fatal Five, so you have been warned. So that being said, this is like the 132nd animated film from DC. They seem to pump them out about every 3 months now, 4 months.
About every 4 seems like, at least once a quarter.
Yeah, and generally speaking, they're all pretty good. We've talked at lengths about the quality of most of them. They kind of some are way up here as far as how good they are, and some story aren't as good, but the action's always been great. Most recently, they seem to have been playing in the universe of the New 52 stuff, so. A lot more streamlined costumes. Think Superman with no, Batman and Superman without their briefs on the outside.
Yeah.
And, kind of reinvigorating some of the old storylines. Most recently, they just did the Man of Steel, the Doomsday storyline, the death of Superman. And so when I heard this one was coming out, I didn't know much about it. Obviously, I was going to watch it. We watch all of them, and like we said, they're usually really good. The first thing I noticed when I turned this on was this is old school Justice League. This is like Justice League Unlimited. This is like the Batman animated series Justice League.
No, it's Batman with like not short, tiny ears. He's got the big.
Oh, he's got the giant ones, and it had Kevin Conroy back as Batman, which is always the best. I mean, he is the Batman. And then it had Superman, the barrel-chested, red trunks on the outside Superman, who's really powerful, but not overly powerful. So sometimes with the new 52, they make Superman almost ridiculous powerful.
Yeah, and this one, Superman can actually get knocked around.
Yeah, this is very much the Superman animated series of the 90s that came out, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. It's been so long since we've seen these characters. I just was really excited, and honestly, from there it just kept going up. I mean, this movie was. This movie was such a throwback to the old Batman and Superman and old Justice League series in every way. I mean, the animation was fantastic. The story was amazing. That's one of the things that I think's been missing from the New 52. They've taken some of the really good storylines and they've redone them. But the cool thing about the original Batman the animated series and the Superman series is those were, in a lot of ways, original stories in general. Like, that was where we got introduced to Harley Quinn for the first time. And we got the Dr. Freeze backstory that was nominated for an Emmy. I mean, those things focused on storytelling first and action and everything else second. And this movie felt very much like that.
Yes, and they did a really good job of bringing in like some of the newer characters, the younger characters, just to kind of, just to give... not everyone that knows all the old Justice League stuff. So, they had Megan and Jessica Cruz.
Well, they had Mr. Fantastic or Mr. Terrific. Was it Mr.?
Yes, I was so excited to see Mr. Terrific because he's one of my favorites, but he never gets to be in any of the movies.
No, and usually when he's in it, he is usually like just being a doctor or doesn't do anything. He's like a total badass in this.
Yeah, he was in there and he was like fighting and kicking butt and doing everything.
Yeah, and like you said, Jessica Cruz, she's one of the newest Green Lanterns. I didn't know a lot about her. I've read some comic books, and she's kind of she's low key one of the main stars in this. And they don't really, they give you a little bit of her backstory, which I like. It was very dark, which I was not expecting. They gave her kind of a, I don't know what you call it, a psychosis that she has to get over. They give her very much a flaw as a hero, right? That's something that she had to overcome to find her power. But it was really done well, and it was really good. And I by the end of this, man, I'm like, man, this might be my new favorite Green Lantern. Jessica Cruz is a badass.
Well, when she finally gets everything together and stuff like that, protecting her friend.
Yeah, when she gets her like Green Lantern glowing over her eye, I'm like, yeah.
Dude, was that a significant thing like that?
That's just kind of what she does in the comic. Like I said, I don't have a ton of. Well, I'll tell you right now. The DC Universe app now has 20,000 comics on it. I'm going to immediately after this go and start reading the Jessica Cruz Green Lantern storyline because, that's what.
I'll find out like how she's just so powerful. So.
Well, Green Lanterns are always about the force of your will. The more powerful your willpower, the more powerful of a lantern you are. So I think her power, especially in this movie, came from her willpower to be able to overcome. Overcome the pain and hurt that she felt and that she's been dealing with, right? So, her, I guess, almost disability that she's
walked her through it. Really, I mean, with Starboy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And so Starboy. So one of the other things about this that this movie did. So I guess real quick before we dive into everything, we should probably, if you haven't seen this movie, it's basically. It combines elements from Legion of Superheroes, which is way in the future. They're basically the Justice League of the year 3000. Some villains from there come back to the past to do something to free somebody, and they go up against the Justice League. So the Justice League right off the bat, which I kind of liked, were basically outmatched because you have these super powered villains from the future who these guys just are not ready to face. And tagging along is one of the Legion of Superheroes, Starboy, who he himself has a mental disability that he has to medicate, or else he basically loses himself. It's almost like a weird form of schizophrenia. It looked like.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a form of schizophrenia because that's kind of like what they diagnosed him with when they found him on Earth. So
yeah, and his storyline, and we'll talk. Well, spoiler. So this is a spoiler. Well, I don't want to spoil the ending because it's so good, but it's so like what he ends up doing at the end of this literally gave me goosebumps. Like I was like, oh my god. I mean, just the way he did. Like he knew that he was broken, and he knew he could never be the same again. But he still knew at his core he was a hero, and he was going to have to do what was right. And it was.
Because he's a superhero, Brian.
Because he's a superhero. And like I said, that is, in my opinion, what has been missing from some of these DC animated movies over the last couple of years, is this amount of heart and story. Yeah. Like, this story is so good. Like, and I don't even know, I don't know if a lot of this story comes from a comic book. I don't know. I didn't know half the characters. Like, I didn't know any of the villains. I know some of them. I've seen some of them appear in other things, but I just don't really know who they were. And so when this thing first started, I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of those movies where I don't really know anybody. And by the end, I just didn't care. Like, even the villains, by the end, the villains were like, oh my God, these villains they're great. They're good villains. I mean.
And to your point, that if you didn't know who the villains were and they're kind of like their motivations and who does what, by the end of the movie, you know everything that you need to know about them. And that's just great storytelling.
Yeah, and it's, there you go. It's just great storytelling, and that's, I could not shake the feeling of like, this is what I've been missing, and like I said earlier, I mean, this is such a throwback. If you like the Batman animated series or the Superman animated series or the old Justice League or Justice League Unlimited, I mean, this is very much in that vein, except for it's massively updated as far as visuals. I watched it on my 4K TV, and it was gorgeous.
To me, it's a really good mashup of taking some of the older material and putting in some of the newer material and being able to kind of mix everything together and make it work pretty seamlessly. I mean,
definitely.
I enjoyed the heck out of it. I really enjoyed the storyline. It had heart because it was something that mental illness is a big thing that people are dealing with and talking about right now, and the way that they were able to incorporate that into the main plot point of the whole movie.
Well, and they didn't do it heavy-handed either. It was like these characters had.
They do it in a mean way. I mean, they did it in a way where, you understand, how these characters are dealing with it, and and it's done really well. I mean,
because a lot of movies that involve, and not even so much animation, but just movies in general that tend to involve people with handicaps. They tend to either turn them into almost like like Rain Man, like they have a superpower where they can count cards, or this wasn't like that. These were just people who were broken in various ways, but that did not stop them from still being who they were and like doing what they had to do. And I really loved, to your point, I love that they kind of addressed this without being heavy-handed, but just made it part of the story.
Yeah, it's just so annoying when they really like, hey, look, this guy's got a mental illness. Everybody, when some people they have to like just keep hammering on that. But the movie,
this guy is deaf because he's deaf, and he can't hear you because he's deaf. And you know what? He's gonna find a way to have to overcome his deafness. Well, okay, yeah, we get it, but this was
it's very natural how they did it,
and honestly, like you said, it's just great storytelling when those elements draw you in even further to the story and really cause you to care about these characters. Like I said, Starboy and Jessica Cruz, I don't think I could have named them before. I mean, I kind of heard about Jessica Cruz a little bit, but I don't know if Starboy's an original character for this or if he's in the comics, but I really want to find out. I loved his power.
Like you, I'm gonna go onto the app. I'm gonna look for Starboy because I really want to read more stuff from Starboy now.
And I loved his power, how he can make the density of everything super heavy, which is really cool. Which is a great.
The lady with the iron bars, and he's like, "I'm just making it more denser." So
and like when they showed his costume in the beginning, I'm like, "What is this? White boots with a star thing?" But then by the end, you're just like, like you said, it's just a credit to the great writing because by the end, his costume makes complete sense, and when he blends in with the stars, you're just like, oh, he's Starboy.
There is a very brief time though where he has no costume.
Oh yes, there is some nudity in this. That gets me to the rating in this. I think is
partial, but
the rating in this is PG-13. Unlike some of the other DC movies, your kids can watch this. Maybe not super young. There is some violence. There's a couple bad words.
8 or 9.
Yeah, there's a few bad words. People, there is some murder. Like we said, the Fatal Five like to commit the murder. So there is some of that. But definitely, I would definitely say 8 and up is probably. It's nothing that they haven't seen before. It's not. It's definitely not the rated R DC animated movies that we do not recommend.
Justice League Dark.
Yes, there's not Justice League Dark, or what was the Batman by Gaslight. That was a good movie, but that was super dark. Jack the Ripper's running around murdering people,
especially at the twist.
That was a crazy twist. But yeah, I don't think we got, unless you got anything else to say. I think we're kind of on the same page with this one. Justice League versus the Fatal Five is a refreshingly great DC animated movie, and I could not recommend this any higher than I currently do.
Yeah, it's right up there with some of my top favorites. I mean, it's definitely worth it. If you have the DC Universe app, you don't even gotta pay anything. No. You just straight up watch it.
Yeah, and side note, thank you DC for giving us some content that we get when it comes out, because as much as I love the DC Universe app, it has been devoid of a lot of content. This made it all worthwhile. As if the 20,000 comics and Titans and everything else wasn't worth it. But no, this was cool. I'm really excited. And if you don't have the DC Universe app, I highly recommend you go out and either purchase the Blu-ray, buy the digital download, or just pay the $70 and get DC Universe app.
Yeah, it's not gonna. You're gonna get more than you're worth out.
Yeah, and if DC's gonna start releasing these movies on the app the same time they're available on Blu-ray, I mean, if a Blu-ray is gonna cost you $20. They release 3 of these a year. I mean, there's your subscription fee right there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way.
And we're not even paid by DC, so this isn't like DC's told us to tell you that you should subscribe to DC. Now
DC would like to send us a big truckload full of money to do this kind of stuff, and we will be all over that. So.
But yeah, Justice League versus the Fatal Five. Go out and watch it right now. It's amazing. You will not be disappointed unless you don't like great story and cool characters and great action.
Yes.
All
I'm
right,
super, Brian. I'm
What?
a superhero. Woo.
It's got barrel chested Superman with his red pants and Kevin Conroy's Batman. What else do you need? That's all you need. All right, man. You got anything else to say?
Man.
Yeah, giant Kevin Conroy, huge ears. And sadly, there's no Mark Hamill's the Joker, but whatever. You can't get it all in this movie. But all right, well, that is, unless you got something else, that is all from us.
No, it was good. Enjoy it.
Until next time, everyone, stay awesome.
And stay nerdy, everybody.